5 years ago, a cargo ship carrying both humans and animals sank in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Everything was thought to have perished, until 7 months later the lone survivor washed up on the coast of Mexico. Patel tells a story of his life, and how he eventually came to conquer the Pacific Ocean alone with a Bengal tiger. I was born Paseen Molitar Patel in Pondicherry, India. I was the second born to my father Santosh Patel and my mother Geeta Patel, my older brother being named Ravi. As early as I can remember, I had always been rather strange. My name, for instance, came from a swimming pool, thanks to Francis Adirubasamy, or as I call him, Mama G. He was a business associate to my father and a close friend of the family, as well as a champion swimmer. His love for swimming infected my family, and while they never actually took to the sport, I was personally trained by Mama G himself. My father was the owner of the Pondicherry Zoo, a gigantic place that I considered my own personal wonderland. I still have the fondest memories of growing up there. It's the reason I had such a happy childhood, and the first reason why I'm alive today. It was the zoo that gave me the knowledge and respect of animals that allowed me to survive my ordeal. One memory I will never forget is the lesson my father showed me when I was 8. My brother and I saw firsthand how dangerous animals can be. The sight of a Bengal tiger mauling a goat will stay with me forever. My first realization of the importance of faith came when I met Satish Kumar, a teacher of mine at my school. He was the first atheist I'd met. After realizing atheists also had to take a leap of faith, I realized the folly of always living with doubt. In fact, this is what probably caused my yearning to seek out further enlightenment. I was introduced to Christianity not long after on a family trip to Munnar, when I was about 14, and nearly a year after, I was taken with Islam as well. Interestingly enough, being introduced to it also by a man named Satish Kumar. God, in all his forms and glory, is the second reason why I'm alive today. He stayed with me when no one else did. He's the reason why I never lost hope. 1976 was the year it was announced that we moved to Canada. I wasn't too clear on the details at the time, but it appeared that Miss Gandhi's politics had something to do with the decision. Less than a year later, on July 21st, 1977, we set sail on the Simsum, bringing along a large amount of zoo animals that we were planning to sell. My tragedy began only days later. I awoke in the middle of the night after hearing an explosion. I explored on my own for a while, before realizing the horror that the ship was sinking. I came across some officers who couldn't understand me, and before I knew it, I was being thrown into a lifeboat, soon followed by a zebra. I wasn't sure how the animals were let out, and frankly, it no longer matters to me. I have Mama G's swimming lessons to thank for allowing me to survive the harsh Pacific waters amidst all that chaos. In my delirious state, I helped Richard Parker, who was desperately swimming for his life, onto the boat. But after realizing I had just helped a Bengal tiger onto my lifeboat, I dived into the water. I attached an oar to the boat so that I could hang on to. From there, Richard Parker was nowhere to be seen, but I soon noticed a hyena had accompanied us as well. It took 3 days and 3 nights before I actively started trying to save my life. During that time, I merely waited and observed. The reality of my situation had not yet sunk in. Orange Juice, our prize orangutan, floated to our boat on a pile of bananas. Surprisingly, there was calm between all the animals for a strange amount of time. But eventually, the hyena slowly began killing off the zebra. First, it took its leg, before eating it alive from the inside. The zebra managed to survive an entire night like that, and I will never forget its valiant struggle to survive. Orange Juice went next. Likewise, she put up a powerful fight against the hyena, but it was too much for her to handle. She was gruesomely beheaded. At this point, I decided all hope was lost, and I moved towards the hyena for a final struggle. He had fallen underneath the tarpaulin, but it was here that I noticed Richard Parker lying beneath it. This was the reason the hyena had waited so long to attack, and Richard Parker's presence was what finally shook me into saving my life. I searched for water and supplies, and I found it in a locker under the tarpaulin. I'll admit, I was hopeless at first, but something inside me pushed me to continue living. God, I believe. I built a raft as the hyena was killed off by Richard Parker, and after miraculously being saved by a rat, I managed to get myself off the boat with it. For the next 7 months, I both lost myself and matured at the same time. Necessity forced me to learn how to fish, and by extension, how to kill. I had to become self-serving, creating shelter, finding food, and utilizing my tools to gain fresh water. I had to give up all forms of decency, even sinking to the point of eating Richard Parker's feces. I could not have done it without God pushing me to stay alive, and giving me hope. I quickly realized that I could not simply avoid Richard Parker. I had to train him. I used all the knowledge I gained from my life in a zoo, and soon enough, I established myself as the alpha. I became his caregiver of sorts, and Richard Parker became my third reason for why I survived. He kept me sane during my ordeal. He gave me something to distract myself from my hopelessness. Every day then was spent doing the same routine, a mixture of fishing, resting, taking care of Richard Parker, and maintaining the boat. I went blind for a while, and during this time, I met another blind castaway. Many people will probably not believe this, but I assure you it's true. My time with him was short-lived, however, because he was soon killed off by Richard Parker when he tried to come on the boat and eat me. Towards the end of my journey, I landed on a strange island. This will seem even more unbelievable, but again, I speak nothing but the truth. It was made up entirely of algae and trees, and was home to a massive meerkat colony. The island brought me back to life with its edible algae and abundance of fresh water. But I soon realized it was in fact carnivorous, becoming acidic at night. It was difficult, leaving my beacon of hope behind, but I would have died a spiritual death knowing I was slowly being eaten away. Finally, after 227 days, I landed on a beach in Mexico. Richard Parker left me without even looking back, and to this day, his indifference still pains me. The people were so kind, taking care of me and offering their sympathy. I cannot ever thank them enough. I was met by 2 Japanese investigators soon after, looking for an explanation about what happened to the ship. They refused to accept my story with animals, so I gave them an alternate one with humans instead of the animals. They seemed to like the animal one better. Today, I live in Toronto with my wife and 2 children. Many people have asked me which story is really true, the animal one or the human one. And I always ask them which the better story is. And their answer is always the animal one. In both stories, my family died and I suffered. It doesn't really matter what anyone else believes. The animal story is what I have chosen to follow, and that's the story that allows me to live happily today.